The words hung between us like a sudden chill in a warm room. Maybe we should take a break. His voice wasn't raised, but the quiet tremor beneath it felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I stared at him, at the man I'd loved since we were barely adults, trying to understand how we had arrived at this thin, breaking point. His hand brushed the edge of the counter, as if he wanted to reach for me but couldn't decide whether he still had the right. And for a heartbeat, his eyes softened, that same familiar warmth flickering through them, the one that used to undo me so easily. It was still there. Buried but alive. The air between us shifted, charged with something unspoken, something neither of us had dared touch in months. A memory flashed. The way his fingers used to linger at the small of my back, the quiet way he'd pull me closer without a word. Tonight, none of that was happening, yet the ghost of it clung to us anyway. And maybe that's why his words hurt more. Because I could still feel him, even when he claimed he needed distance. I took a slow breath, tasting the weight of everything we hadn't said. It wasn't just about the fights or the late nights or the drifting silences. It was deeper, older. A tension woven from secrets, from the things we'd both locked away. He looked at me as though he expected me to fall apart, or agree, or nod numbly, and let him leave. But instead, something inside me, something long kept quiet, rose to the surface. His jaw tensed. His shoulders drew in. I could tell he sensed it, that shift. The truth I was about to speak. A truth that might hurt him, or save us. A truth that could shatter the fragile calm holding us together. I stepped closer. Close enough to feel the warmth of him, close enough to see his breath hitch as if he wasn't as detached as he pretended. And when I finally opened my mouth to speak, his eyes widened, because what I revealed next was something he never expected. The moment the words formed on my tongue, his entire body reacted, subtle, but unmistakable. His breath stilled, his shoulders tightened, and his eyes locked onto mine with a sharpness I hadn't seen in months. It was as if he felt the truth before I even released it, as if some part of him already knew what was coming. "I can't take a break," I whispered. "Because there's something I need to tell you first." The silence that followed was heavy enough to bend the room. He swallowed, once slowly. "What is it?" His voice was low, almost rough, the kind he used only when he was scared or trying hard not to show it. I stepped closer, the soft glow from the under-cabinet lights brushing warmth across his face. Our shadows merged on the tile floor, long and wavering like they couldn't decide where one ended and the other began. He didn't move away. Not even a fraction. Instead, he leaned back against the counter, hands gripping the edge as if grounding himself. "I've been holding something in," I murmured. "Something I should have said a long time ago." His jaw flexed. My pulse drummed. The kitchen felt too small for everything suspended between us. Then, without warning, his hand brushed mine. Barely. Gently. Accidental, or maybe not. A passing graze of skin that sent a warm shock spinning through my chest. I felt him inhale sharply, as if that single touch broke something open inside him too. "I thought..." He paused, searching for words. "I thought you stopped wanting to talk to me." "Stopped wanting me." The confession was soft, vulnerable in a way he rarely allowed. His eyes flicked to my lips, then away so quickly he probably hoped I hadn't noticed. But I had. I always noticed him. Even when I tried not to. "No," I breathed. "That's not it at all." We stood inches apart, close enough that the warmth radiating off him tangled with mine, close enough that the quiet between us felt like a living thing. I could feel his heartbeat, or maybe it was only my own, pounding recklessly. He lifted his gaze again, slower this time, letting it settle on my face with an intensity that made the air thicken. "Then what is it?" he asked, quiet, intimate, almost aching. I opened my mouth, ready to break the last layer of silence. But the truth trembled there, refusing to fall. "Not yet." And he waited, eyes burning softly, as if he wasn't sure whether the next thing I'd say would ruin him, or pull him back to me completely. His fingers lingered against mine a fraction longer than they should have, long enough for the warmth to spread up my arm, long enough for my breath to catch. And when he finally pulled his hand back, it wasn't because he wanted to. It was because he was afraid of what might happen if he didn't. He exhaled shakily and looked away, as if the granite countertop suddenly needed all his attention. But the tension between us only thickened, rising like heat from the floor. "You're not telling me something," he murmured, his voice tight, trying to sound composed but unraveling at the edges. Neither of us moved. Neither of us blinked too fast. There was a fragile, electric awareness in the air, like we both stood on the edge of something we weren't sure we could come back from. "I'm trying," I whispered. "But every time I get close, something stops me." He lifted his head slowly, as if afraid of what he'd see. When his gaze met mine, there was so much longing in it, raw, unguarded, that it nearly knocked the breath out of me. "What stops you?" he asked. "You," I said, barely more than a breath. His eyes widened, hurt, confusion, and something warmer flickering underneath. "Me?" I nodded. "Because when I look at you, I feel everything I've been trying not to feel. And I'm scared that if I say the wrong thing, or the right thing at the wrong time, we'll fall apart before we even figure out if we're still worth fighting for." He stepped toward me, just one step, but enough that the space between us thinned again. Close enough for me to feel the warmth of him, close enough to catch the faint tremble in his fingers as he braced them on the counter behind me. "So you're avoiding the truth because you're afraid of wanting me?" he whispered, voice barely audible. My heart thudded painfully. "I'm afraid of wanting you more than you want me." That landed like a strike. He inhaled sharply, and for a moment his expression cracked, like he wanted to bridge the last inch between us, like he wanted to pull me in, like he wanted to confess everything he'd been burying too. His gaze dropped to my lips. Slowly. Unintentionally. Or very intentionally. He leaned in, not enough to touch, but enough for the world to blur around the edges. My breath tangled with his. His forehead nearly brushed mine. My hand almost rose to his chest before I stopped myself, fingers trembling with the urge. Then he froze. Not because he didn't want to move closer, but because he wanted it too much. And pulling back was the only way he knew how to stop himself. He took in a ragged breath and stepped away, dragging his hand through his hair. "This is exactly why I said we might need a break," he murmured, not looking at me. "Because I don't trust myself around you. Not right now." The confession hit harder than any distance he put between us. Because it wasn't rejection. It was desire, with nowhere safe to land. He stood a few feet from me, chest rising and falling too fast, as if distance was the only thing keeping him from unraveling. His hands stayed buried in his hair, knuckles tense, eyes fixed on the floor like he couldn't risk looking at me again. But even from across the kitchen, I could feel the pull, the heat of everything we weren't saying dragging us back toward each other in slow, silent circles. I took a step toward him. Small. Careful. His head lifted at the sound, his eyes locking onto mine with that same stunned, aching intensity he tried so hard to hide. It hit me like warmth spreading through cold air. "You don't have to be afraid of wanting me," I said softly. He blinked once. Then his jaw tightened, and something inside him cracked open, quiet but undeniable. "I'm not afraid of wanting you," he murmured. "I'm afraid of what I'll do if I let myself feel it." The confession stole the breath from my lungs. He moved then, not much, not enough to close the gap, but enough that the air between us tightened. His fingers twitched at his sides, and for the first time all night, it looked like he was fighting desire harder than fear. I stepped closer. Another inch. And another. Close enough now that I felt the warmth rising from his skin like a whisper against my own. His breath hitched. Mine tangled with it. The kitchen lights softened around us, turning the moment into something fragile and electric. "Then just feel it," I whispered. He exhaled, long and shaky, like a man pushed to the edge. Slowly, so slowly, he reached out. His hand hovered near my waist, not touching, but close enough that the energy of him brushed me like a warm breeze. My breath faltered. His eyes flicked down, watching the small space between his fingers and my skin as if terrified of crossing it, and equally terrified not to. I can't, he whispered, voice hoarse. If I touch you right now, I won't be able to stop. My heart thudded against my ribs, aching with a quiet, desperate truth. What if I don't want you to stop? His eyes shot up, raw, wounded, hungry. The kind of look that could break a person open from the inside out. He leaned in, a bare inch. Our foreheads almost touched. Our lips hovered in the same breath, not meeting but burning with the certainty that if they did, everything would change. His whisper ghosted across my mouth. Don't say that unless you mean it. I do, I breathed. Silence. Heavy. Hot. Suspended. He closed his eyes like the truth physically hurt him, then opened them slowly, pupils blown wide, desire simmering just beneath the surface. And for a heartbeat, I swore he was going to kiss me. But he didn't. He stopped right there, trembling, breathless, a man holding back the one thing he wanted most, while the world throbbed with everything we weren't yet ready to let happen. The storm arrived just after midnight, soft rain at first, then a steady rhythm that tapped against the windows like a heartbeat the world couldn't quiet. The kitchen felt smaller now, darker, lit only by the warm glow above the stove. Shadows stretched long across the floor, wrapping around us like invisible hands pulling us back together. He stood there, still so close, still breathing like he couldn't decide whether to step away or fall into me. Something in him was breaking, something tired of holding back, of pretending the fire simmering between us was something either of us could outrun. Tell me you meant it, he whispered, voice barely audible over the rain. I did, I said, the words soft but steady. His breath left him in a tremor. And then he moved, slow, careful, like approaching something fragile and sacred. His fingers grazed my waist first, the lightest touch imaginable, a warm brush that sent shivers spiraling through me. He didn't pull me in. He just rested his hand there, testing the gravity between us, surrendering to it one heartbeat at a time. My breath melted into his. And in that moment, everything we'd been holding back rushed in, the longing, the ache, the fear, the hunger we tried so hard to silence. His forehead touched mine, gentle, reverent. His other hand rose and feathered along my jawline, tracing the shape of my cheek the way someone touches a memory they're terrified of losing. I leaned into him, barely, but enough that our bodies seemed to exhale at the same time, as if they had been waiting years for this inch of closeness. You feel it too, I whispered. He nodded against my skin, a soft, shaky movement. I've been trying not to. The rain thickened outside, turning into a quiet roar that sealed us off from the rest of the world. He dipped his head, his lips brushing my cheek, not a kiss, not quite. More like a confession made through touch. His breath warmed my skin, and something deep inside me cracked open, flooding me with heat and tenderness all at once. I slid my hands up his chest, feeling the tension beneath my fingertips, the way his heart raced with every inch I climbed. When my palms reached his shoulders, he shuddered, leaning into the contact like it grounded him, like it unraveled him. Tell me to stop, he whispered. I shook my head gently. I won't. His arms circled my waist, not pulling, just holding. Holding like he'd been starving for the shape of me. Like he needed the softness of my body to tell him we were still real. Then everything slowed, the air, the breath between us, the way he lowered his face toward mine. His lips brushed the corner of my mouth, slow and trembling, a barely there touch that felt more intimate than anything we'd ever done. My fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. His breath shook against my skin. And when he finally kissed me, fully, softly, deeply, it wasn't rushed or wild. It was a release. A surrender. 1,000 unsaid words dissolving into warmth. Our bodies moved closer without thinking, fitting together like truths sliding into place. His hands slid up my back, gentle but desperate. My lips lingered on his, slow and aching. The world faded into rain and breath and the quiet sound of two people no longer fighting what had always been there. Nothing explicit. Nothing rushed. Just the kind of intimacy that lives in the spaces between touches, where longing becomes language, where heat becomes heartbeat, where their bodies spoke the words they couldn't say. And for the first time in months, maybe years, we stopped holding back. Morning came quietly, too quietly for a night that had felt like a storm inside our bodies. Gray light filtered through the curtains, washing the kitchen in a soft, muted glow. The warmth from last night still lingered in the air, but it was fragile now, thin, like breath on glass. He stood at the counter with a mug in his hands, staring into the steam as if it held every answer he'd been avoiding. His shoulders were tense, but his expression, what I could see of it, looked more lost than guilty. I hovered near the doorway, unsure whether to step closer or give him the space he seemed desperate for. Last night lived between us, alive and unignorable. He finally spoke. "I didn't sleep." My heart tightened. "Me either." He nodded once, jaw flexing. "It wasn't supposed to happen." But when he turned to look at me, something in his eyes betrayed him, something soft, something still burning from the memory of the way he held me, the way his breath had broken against mine like a confession he couldn't swallow back. "Do you regret it?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He closed his eyes. Exhaled. "I don't know." It hurt, and yet part of me understood. Last night had been a release, yes, but it was also a collapse. A moment of truth between two people who'd been pretending for far too long. I walked toward him slowly. He watched every step, as if unsure whether he should stay still or run. When I reached the counter beside him, our arms brushed, a soft, accidental contact that felt louder than anything. "We can't pretend it didn't happen," I said. "I'm not pretending." His voice dropped. "I'm trying to understand it." "What's there to understand?" I whispered. "We were honest. For the first time in so long." He swallowed hard. "And that scares me. Because honesty means admitting what we've been breaking, and what we still want." Before I could answer, a soft knock echoed from the front door, a quiet but jarring sound in the morning stillness. We froze. The air shifted again, tension knotting tight in both of us. "Are you expecting someone?" he asked. "No." Another knock. Firmer. He set his mug down, eyes narrowing with a mixture of confusion and dread. "Stay here," he murmured, and walked toward the hallway. I followed a step behind, heart thudding like a warning. When he opened the door, the breath left his chest. Standing there, rain-speckled, hesitant, carrying an envelope with my name on it, was someone neither of us had expected. The kind of someone who could change everything, again. And the fragile peace we'd built overnight trembled, threatening to break. He stood frozen in the doorway, the morning light catching the edges of his face as he looked at the visitor holding the envelope. I stepped closer, my breath caught somewhere between fear and inevitability. The woman offered a gentle smile, hesitant, apologetic. "I'm sorry to come so early," she said. "But I promised your mother I'd deliver this to you both." My mother. My pulse softened. I took the envelope with trembling fingers. Her handwriting, looping and familiar, stretched across the front. She'd written it before she passed, a letter we didn't know existed. A letter meant for both of us. He closed the door slowly, turning toward me with a look that broke and healed me all at once. We stood together in the quiet hallway, the distance from earlier fading into something smaller, something softer. "Open it," he said gently. I did. Inside, her words spilled like warm light, about love, about holding on, about how two people could drift apart not because they stopped caring, but because they forgot how to let themselves be vulnerable. She wrote that love wasn't the fire of passion or the promise of forever. It was the courage to choose each other even when things cracked. By the time I finished reading, my hands shook. His eyes shone with a warmth I hadn't seen in so long. He stepped closer, slow, careful, like last night hadn't broken us but revealed us. When his fingers brushed my cheek, it wasn't desperate or afraid. It was steady. Present. True. "I don't want a break," he whispered. "Not anymore. Not after last night. Not after this." I want us. Imperfect. Messy. Learning again. A breath escaped me, relief, grief, love, all tangled together. I leaned into him, letting my forehead rest against his chest as his arms circled me with a tenderness that felt like coming home. His lips pressed softly to the crown of my head, nothing rushed, nothing heated, just a promise. A quiet choosing. We'll figure it out, I whispered. We will, he murmured back. The morning felt warmer. The house felt lighter. And for the first time in a long time, our hearts rested, side by side, choosing peace, choosing hope, choosing each other. Slowly. Gently. As if the love we almost lost had found its way back.